Snow swirls against the windows of the wolf's lair, slicing across the forest with icy precision. Inside, maps lie spread across the heavy oak table, red ink marking the anticipated surge into the Ardennes. Hitler leans over the table, face pale but eyes burning with obsession. "One more blow will knock America out," he declares, voice echoing off stone walls. Around him, generals exchange wary glances, noting the exhaustion etched on faces and the reality of depleted fuel reserves. It is December 1944, and Germany is a nation gasping under the weight of Allied forces. Yet, Hitler refuses to acknowledge retreat. He commands 200,000 men, 400 tanks, and vast artillery to push through the Ardennes forest, believing that a rapid, decisive strike can alter the war's course. His generals, including Model and Rundstedt, caution him about weather forecasts, the treacherous terrain, and lack of supply lines. But Hitler's fixation is absolute. You can almost hear the crackle of radio static as intelligence officers try to convey the Allies' preparedness. Tanks roar to life in their garages, engines coughing smoke into the freezing air. Soldiers tighten scarves around frostbitten faces, tightening gloves over numb fingers. The stage is set. The gamble has begun. By nightfall, columns of armored vehicles begin the slow, ominous crawl toward the Ardennes. Each clank of treads on icy roads resonates like a heartbeat of an empire racing toward collapse. You feel the anticipation, the tension knowing that within days, this daring plan will test not only German resolve, but the limits of winter and human endurance. Will the Führer's vision hold, or will the forest swallow his final gamble? Morning light filters through thick fog, transforming the Ardennes into a ghostly landscape of white. Snow muffles the crunch of boots and the roar of engines. Panzers, once symbols of unstoppable power, plow slowly into the forest, their tracks sinking deep. Crews huddle inside steel coffins, the cold seeping into every joint. Soldiers burn scraps of wood and furniture to stave off frostbite. The smell of smoke and fear hangs heavy in the air. Initial gains are made. Small villages fall under German control and radio chatter buzzes with overconfidence. Commanders speak of Wacht am Rhein victories. Yet reports from the front reveal the creeping obstacles: icy roads, snowdrifts, and mechanical failures. Tanks stall, men grow weary, supply trucks struggle, bogged down in frozen mud. Hitler, thousands of kilometers away, continues to demand speed, accuracy, and glory. Imagine standing in a snow-covered ditch beside a Panther tank, exhaust steaming, soldiers shivering, faces pale. You hear muffled commands and distant artillery. Every step forward is a struggle, every movement a battle against the elements as much as the enemy. Letters from soldiers describe hands numb, fingers cracking, fuel reserves dangerously low. The Wehrmacht's might, once unstoppable, is already faltering under nature's cruelty. By the end of Section 2, the first shockwaves of failure ripple through the Ardennes. Tanks lie immobilized in snowbanks. Crews huddle, eyes hollow, as the cold gnaws at morale. The viewer is left to ask, can Hitler's obsession override the reality of winter, logistics, and exhausted men? The wind howls through the Ardennes like a living creature, biting at exposed skin, rattling armor plates. Crews set fires inside tanks and houses to stave off frostbite. Engines cough, stall, and sometimes refuse to restart. Outposts report abandoned panzers, crews forced to scavenge fuel or burn personal belongings for warmth. Each failure echoes back to command posts, undermining morale and strategy. Reports from frontline officers like Model's dispatches detail the breakdown. Columns stuck for hours, artillery frozen, communications disrupted by ice and snow. Yet Hitler demands the offensive continue. Maps show planned routes, but reality is painted in white and gray, a frozen canvas mocking every expectation. Soldiers' journals recount frostbitten feet, layers of clothing soaked in freezing, and the constant threat of enemy fire. You can almost smell the smoke from makeshift fires and feel the sting of icy wind as it seeps through gloves and coats. Officers curse, soldiers shiver, and every engine failure becomes a small disaster. The snow absorbs sound, making the forest eerily silent between the occasional crack of gunfire or the grinding halt of a tank. By the end of Section 3, Hitler's gamble is visibly unraveling. As tanks lie abandoned, men grow desperate. The Allies begin to counterattack with intelligence gained from intercepted communications. The cold is no longer just weather, it is a weapon, claiming machines and lives alike. The audience is left with the chilling vision of Germany's last armored reserves immobilized in snow and ice. The Ardennes has become a graveyard of steel and ambition. Snowdrifts cradle panzers like tombs. Soldiers huddle in ruined villages, rationing dwindling supplies. Orders from Berlin are frantic, contradictory. Hitler, still thousands of miles away, demands offensive maneuvers, unaware of the frozen disaster unfolding. The sound of engines failing, creaking tracks, and distant artillery echoes like a dirge. Radio silence stretches for hours, broken only by desperate reports. Positions lost, tanks abandoned, men freezing. Officers improvise, burning furniture, tearing doors from buildings, desperate for heat. Morale is collapsing, supplies are non-existent. The blizzard has become an unyielding adversary, as lethal as any Allied regiment. Imagine walking past a stalled Tiger tank, crew asleep inside, snow piling on the roof. Outside, the forest is silent except for the occasional howl of a distant wolf or the whistle of wind. You feel the cold bite deep into bones. Hear the men whispering prayers, and watch as one of Germany's last hopes freezes into stillness. Every moment counts, yet survival seems futile. As Section 4 closes, reports reach Hitler. Entire columns immobilized, fuel reserves spent, offensive momentum lost. Yet he remains obstinate, urging continued advance. The viewer is left hanging on the brink. Can a nation's last armored power survive both nature and miscalculated ambition? By late December, the Ardennes Offensive has ground to a halt. The Allies reinforced an adaptive counterattack, reclaiming towns and capturing frozen equipment. Historians note that Hitler's insistence on the offensive cost Germany thousands of men and hundreds of tanks, effectively ending its capacity for large-scale armored operations. Fuel reserves are exhausted, morale shattered, final gamble has failed. In the freezing aftermath, soldiers dig through snow-covered wreckage, salvaging weapons, rationing meager supplies. Survivors recount the horror of fighting in sub-zero temperatures, engines dead, and comrades lost to frostbite and exhaustion. German generals acknowledge the disaster. Hitler, back in Berlin, is increasingly isolated, stubbornly fixated on impossible victories. You can almost hear the echoes of abandoned vehicles, the whispering wind through shattered villages, and the soft crunch of snow beneath weary boots. The Ardennes, once a stage 4 bold maneuvering, is now a frozen testament to ambition unchecked by reality. The camera pans over the snow-blanketed forest, dotted with wrecked tanks and empty helmets. The voiceover reflects on the human and material cost, emphasizing the finality. Germany's last armored reserves are gone. Hitler's last gamble, driven by delusion and obsession, has turned into a frozen tomb of machines and men. As the credits of destruction roll, the viewer is left with a stark truth. Strategy, courage, and hope can be obliterated by nature, miscalculation, and hubris. The Ardennes Offensive is a lesson in the perils of blind ambition, frozen in both history and memory.